All right, everybody, welcome back. We got One Piece reactions here. It is Diazzo and Malcor. I'm Malcor. They are Diazzo. Give the people a wave. Thank you, thank you. I
I
am the
mean, that
hater,
predictable.
and
We're
they
only
are
on the
the
second
master.
recording now.
uh,
uh,
yeah,
uh,
so we're here to have some fun with it. Continue where we left off with Zoro and Luffy joining up. Nami, as we saw in, I believe the outro is next to line up, even though we have Sanji and Usopp on screen right now. I'm
from the opening, yeah.
curious to see how her introduction changes in tone from Netflix and manga. And again, for those who are just here or need a quick little reminder, I'm new, but I'm an anime guy. I'm a manga guy. I've
You're
read a lot.
new in the
I've seen
sense
a
of
lot.
this is your first time like going through the actual anime, like
Yes,
proper, as
this is my
opposed to
first time going through the anime. I have not read the manga past
well,
like Buggy.
yeah.
I read to Buggy
You
or
read
OG Go
Gaimon
Daimon.
as well. You read Gaimon's Treasure Island as well.
Yeah, Gaimon is the G. Gaimon thesis. Get in the comments about it. And
One
I want to
thing,
ask a quick question because we
okay.
got into this a little bit before. But what, if you can describe succinctly, is your watching experience with One Piece? Because I know you're up to date with the manga, and then the anime you're not. So what's
I'm
going
not.
on there? And what was your like on and off pattern?
Um, so part of it is down to like past a certain point, the anime is very padded, like in episode filler. So you would have 20 reaction shots for something that's like a couple of panels, like in the manga. It gets
Yeah.
rough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, we might be doing a bit of One Piece later on.
Oh, okay.
For reference for everyone, I know that might annoy people, but I know not doing that will annoy Mal way more.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
So it's rough in that sense, but also I kind of wanted to watch Wano from beginning to end, and I just haven't had time to go ahead and do that because Wano is like a massive time commitment in itself.
That's also what I hear everybody talking about, though. Like, I don't even know what Wano is other than a place that is based off of real Japan. And I only know this because the One Piece Andes were being annoying to the FF14 Andes, who were like, oh man, we love Kugane and whatever other places are inspired by like the Japanese. And then like, they copied the Wano arc. Did you know the Heian era copied Oda's Wano arc? Like,
And
they're crazy
like
with it.
old school Japan just really copied the Wano arc.
It, I've literally, I've literally heard and read conversations that are people like make that joke ironically or to make fun of others as like hyperbole, and then others in the comments will be unironic and just whoosh, right over their head, and they'll dive right in to defend. So I'm curious to hear what's being defended in these early seasons. What sacred cows am I pushing over? Uh,
Yeah, it's the longest arc currently.
all right.
Like
Well,
overall.
we got to get there. So let's
Yeah,
boot up
that's a long
episode
time away.
4.
Um,
Episode 4. And if I'm right, we got my man Shanks on here, who looks suspiciously blood related to Luffy, but that's not a guarantee in my eyes
yeah.
yet.
Before we get in, that I do need to like correct myself from like the last recording we did. Yeah, so Kobe's age. Said it was like 14, 15. I knew this at the time, and I just like didn't actually remember it in the moment. He's 16 years old.
What? I thought you were gonna say younger.
No.
Why does he grow so much later? Anime, man. This is what I'm talking about.
It's
Dr.
the parallel,
Slump
the growth of the character.
Dr. Slump is just hiding out in this series. It never really left.
You got to parallel the growth of the character alongside a visual upgrade and all that.
If they explain that on some level, and then that is why like characters like Whitebeard are like 50 meters tall, that could be interesting. Kind of like Dark Souls, you know, how the giants are like filled with souls, and those are just larger vessels as well, something like that. But
Yeah, that's all I needed to bring up.
16.
Yeah, 16.
Okay.
Luffy's
Let's
17.
see what
Luffy is
new
1 year older
oddities.
than him.
Yeah, let's see what new oddities we got on episode 4. Gotta love those One Piece laughs.
Oh, you don't know the half of it at this point.
I almost don't want to. Part of me wonders how real her dehydration is here.
I mean, you read the manga. Like, if you actually think about it, she had to have like that toy panda head available and the spring and the whole getup and set it up.
Yeah.
There's also a little background.
So this is like a fun little gimmick for her to explain her powers of observation and weather deduction. Even if it being like one specific cloud that just randomly hails, as jank as hell we are in a cartoon land. Not just anime, but like cartoon land, which One Piece borrows the rules of quite a bit. So mystical. Can't you stretch, bro?
But they need the thematic turnaround. The flashback.
Ah. That hat floating was beautiful. Shanks having the double voice in the background, that was kind of lame, but... I got words about this.
Oh.
Good words, but stern. Oh, he just eats it here and now?
Yeah.
Was that in the case in the manga? I can't remember.
I think it was during the actual argument thing with the Mando.
It's funny, Luffy used to be good at swimming, though. That's actually new information to me.
Yeah, because you know about the devil fruit weakness, but
yeah,
unable to swim.
I also know it's mostly related to like the ocean, not just water in general. Like, obviously, he wouldn't want to be in a bucket, but like, isn't seawater even worse or something?
It's. I think.
Well,
it's,
you don't need to tell me. We'll find out.
Yeah.
It's funny how he's standing behind them so quietly in frame. That's actually quite clever. Okay, so on this break, I gotta say, the way Shanks handled it is so telling of his character, both what makes him good and what makes him charismatic for people to follow his humble nature, but also his own failing. Punch as hard as pistols. It's a fun callback to the move.
Yeah.
Damn.
Straight up.
Classic sound effects.
There's a lot of shared sound effects with Dragon Ball. Sorry, animation.
The kid attacked us? Bruh, he's like 2. Surprised Luffy's not in diapers right now if they could afford him. It is weird how he got away so easily.
Yeah.
And Shanks' attitude about it, he seems to react that way to a lot of things, but especially the things he doesn't take seriously. So, I can't help but wonder if there's something about this that is on purpose. Especially with the way the other guy was smiling. I love this thing, by the way.
Lord of the Coast.
Oh man, he was moving! That 1.5 speed. Yeah, that's a real jump scare. There we go. Man gave him the wavy waifu.
It would have been funny if they replayed that earlier animation just to have him bolt the fuck out of there. I see that reaction.
If Shanks awakened his Conqueror's Haki because his arm was ripped off saving Luffy, and I call back to that moment was like what it took for him to become serious enough to actually like go there, then I would be impressed. Our problem is that Luffy does this shit in like a time skip. And it just sets all the scales wacky as hell.
We're gonna have a lengthy discussion about this episode.
Yeah, and again, more of this ace characterization. If you're following me, I can't give you the hat. But if you're trying to surpass me, then you have my blessings. And something about his knowing and traveled nature really sets up the fact that he knows more about Luffy than Luffy does about himself.
I do like the play on perspectives for this.
Yes. That was funny. I like that story a little bit. This is probably the only reason why Zoro actually meets up with Luffy again. It's because of those guys. Yeah, again, more... Like, how does he not know Buggy? He's a devil fruit user who's famous. Or at least in the area.
Like, he has a prominent bounty. It's like 15 mil or something?
Yeah, Zoro doesn't proclaim himself as a bounty hunter, but that was his functional job for a while. And Bucky was in the area to steal that map, so it's not like there was no association or they're so far away.
Zoro
Oh, they're setting up his cannonballs. I'm
Zoro's a
interested to see
very
how the anime is going to handle the cannonballs because the manga made him like a big deal. I was like, yo, this guy, screw hockey, because not everyone can use that shit. It takes a lot of training. A cannonball, anyone can load that shit. That's the real money.
there's a funny gag involved in that later on.
And a fun foreshadowing that he can already take one of the cannonballs. I appreciate that.
Yeah, like One Piece
Well, there's
at
quite a bit to
times.
say about Shanks here.
Yeah, I'm gonna address like sort of the later like episode things just like off the bat right now
Sure.
because it's relatively quick. Yeah, One Piece it tends to be a bit. It plays it for jokes sometimes, especially like earlier on, like in terms of Luffy takes a cannonball, something akin to that. Zoro's like
It's not take bullets, so it's not like outside of the realm,
Yeah, Zoro's bounty hunter thing is more laissez-faire, like I'm just like doing this to get along on the side type deal, as opposed to it being my passion.
Yeah, but like, wouldn't you have seen the poster board?
Yeah, like you should.
Buggy's pretty memorable.
Like, why is that just like a guy dressed as a clown? Why is he doing that for like his sort of like get up?
Yeah, that's like his whole thing is being distinct, and trying to like make that work on his own terms. So, it's a little weird, but it's actually not that big a deal to me. I gotta talk about Shanks, man. I gotta talk about him.
Yeah, let's get into the Shanks stuff.
First of all, cool character design. The red hair was like the perfect tone, where it's like we've already seen Nami, who's more of a ginger, and he's got actual red hair, but something about them not going like hyper lustrous to the point it turns into like plasticine looking, but like the homey kind of nature of early One Piece really sells him as a man. Even that gag where he's like standing in the back, like watching what's happening, he really does blend in. It's not like there's so many shows who try and do shit like that, and it's just cringe because you like obviously see it coming, and there's no sense of surprise or suspense. But he actually blended well, and I feel like that just goes to show even more of his characterization. He's got a very simple outfit. And not simple like Zoro, where like Zoro doesn't care about having stuff. Even Luffy has somewhat of an iconic fit. He's got this big hat, he's got this like bright red shirt, and these pretty decently bright blue, like sky blue shorts.
Yeah.
Where Shanks is dressed in a monotone and a cloak. And the cloak isn't overly,
It's very swashbuckler.
Yeah. Very swashbuckler, very low key, still handsome, but not to like a flamboyant degree, or an ostentatious angle. And his personality. I feel like this episode is pretty brilliant in how it sets up everything that Shanks is. I don't feel like it does as good a job with Luffy, though. At least not in this particular iteration. We see some of Luffy's feistiness, but whether it's anime runtime or something else, they seem like almost afraid to go into why it matters to him, this perception. And it's like the first guess is obviously he's an orphan and wants power and respect because he actually needs stability to grow up safely. And he doesn't really have like a sense of purpose or importance, being some humdrum kid living off the mercy of a bar. But there just wasn't quite enough of that for me to get like why he cares so much.
Yeah,
because Shanks doesn't care. Like if your role model was this cool guy and then his image was tarnished, that'd be one thing. But Shanks routinely makes an effort to not be that way. So like, where's this this image concern from Luffy really stemming from, and where's this bitterness that he has towards people's perception of him stemming from.
Yeah.
I think that could have been covered more. That was the
Um,
really only bad part, I'm gonna say.
I can't really address a lot of that for potential spoiler reasons. That's
Yeah.
going to be my
Clearly,
disclaimer
as
for
I
all that.
said, as I kind of alluded to, I definitely feel like Netflix says that Garp is Luffy's granddad or something.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what other details they talk about, so I'm not going to act as if any of those are confirmed. But it starts to bring in something really interesting with that extra knowledge. Like Shanks is acting in a way where he knows more. And it's not the way that he acted wasn't just like, "Hey kid, you're going to be a star someday." And I just know it. And it wasn't a way of like, "Oh, I'm just passing through and I'll humor you." There was a very definitive like, "I'm teaching you these lessons in a way that is not based on my own ego." Like he wasn't doing that for him to receive some sort of worship or mentorship or sense of like fatherhood or anything like that. It felt like he was doing this out of a sense of like obligation, but obligation to who? Because it's not the bar owner and it's not Luffy himself. So who is that? And that's what's curious. I want to see where that goes.
We
And
we can get into
mhm.
that theory territory way later on because I've got my own like thoughts about that I want to spew out right now, but I flat out can't. Um,
Yeah, that's the
and
joy though.
yeah, yeah. This is like because it is the start of the manga. It is the beginning thing. It is one of those moments in the series that is going to be referenced like multiple times
Yes.
throughout and built upon. Of
Even
like
even
it's
as
like
the
this way for
lore
this reason.
inevitably changes or is retconned, or maybe not even fully retconned, but like revised for the implications of details that weren't probably there at the beginning. And I don't really begrudge that as long as it's understandable.
Yeah.
Um, it's just going to be such a callback point. Like the hat is everything. It's literally the Straw Hat Pirates. Um, the hat is everything. It's his icon. You know, it's what people think of. Uh,
One
that
of
and
the
the red, I guess, but that's just any Japanese action main character.
one of the scenes that did get removed, like in comparison to the Netflix, in comparison to the manga, and even the I think the first like redo of this because I think there's like an OVA thing, or it was like a few episodes in like the mid 400s or something like that. And that
Okay.
is the Luffy eye cutting scene, him getting the scar.
Yeah, because he has the eye cut. Yeah, that was in the Netflix. As a show of his like manliness. And Ace, actually, I'm glad you brought that up because that makes Ace losing his arm another better
You
comparison
call him
point
Ace, you
for
mean
him
Shanks,
teaching
yeah.
Luffy. Hmm?
Shanks losing his arm, not Ace.
Oh yeah, they're basically the same character to me, guys. As I'm being real when I say I'm not like deep into the One Piece
Yeah.
stuff. If you hear me talking about stuff, you'll find out. um, Shanks has this great contrast with Luffy. Like losing the arm to a creature you could scare off just by sight alone is dumb, but that's the world we're living in. So if we move on from that and look at like why it happened to actually like garner some understanding about this like script writing, then we get a really great contrast between Luffy wounding himself selfishly in the hopes of proving something to other people, and Shanks doing the exact opposite, getting wounded in service of somebody else and not making a big deal out of it and taking on a burden rather than becoming one. And that's like, with that comparison in mind, it's actually a beautiful moment. But they don't have the eye cut, and so I'm just left with this kind of dumb arm thing. So that's a little
Yeah.
janky.
Um. Oh boy, where to approach this from initially? Like, I don't fully subscribe. Well, I partially subscribe onto the whole. This is the first like bit of media released in terms of One Piece as a franchise. Is this in the manga? So
Yeah,
if there
especially
was
when you consider North American release. they're not really getting the manga with the same kind of audience that the anime shows up on, like Toonami or whatever spotlight it gets for kids.
So, if there was any sort of, section of the story that'd be like, oh yeah, I haven't thought anything yet, like every like minuscule detail out of this point, it would be this section. So I think
Yeah.
there's an element of that. Shanks and
Yeah.
where he is in the grand scheme of things, this part is questionable. Like, how strong is Shanks? Like, is he like just some random guy that just happened to inspire Luffy?
No, I actually disagree. I think they're shedding. I think they are setting Shanks up to be one of the most important people.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the most important people. And the reason why I can say this is because it's so common a trope to have the mentor make some sacrifice to cover for their mentees, the protagonist's weaknesses or overconfidence or their tragedy or whatever else it is. The mentor makes the sacrifice of adulthood, and that's what demarks them, first of all, as a good mentor, and also strips away the protection and service they bring. So the person has to adventure on their own merit. Shanks does this, but he does not die. And he does not stop either. He goes back on a ship with his guys and says, I'm good.
Yeah, he loses his arm and he barely reacts. It's like,
away.
oh, I just lost my arm. Like, yeah, whatever. Like, I'm just glad you're safe. It's like, but there is no like,
even after the fact, even his crew in the anime is kind of like, whatever. Like, this doesn't change anything. We're still going out there. And that means, like, if this man loses his arm as part of his mentor to the protagonist's sacrifice, and he pays his tribute with just an arm, and he's still going full force, there's no way he's not massive. So I think he's going to be this figure that is always in the rumors, always in the contention for King of the Pirates. He will never, ever come close. He will never, ever come close. Never. Because he just doesn't have that ambition. His ambition is to just enjoy life. It's honestly almost like a more earnest pirate ambition. Yeah, it's kinder, but in the sense of like being free-spirited. He's almost free-spirited to the point of, like, Luffy has this great ambition, and while he is free, he still ultimately pursues that. And he can put it down, but he always picks it back up. Where Shanks isn't really holding anything. And in a way that kind of makes him weaker. Because it's one of those things where it's like, what's the best way to stop a war? An insurmountable show of force. Because if Shanks was like, hey, we all mean business, and we're already here, and I will get you a loan to stake my own territory, like, people know this is Shanks' place. This is where he goes to have fun. Don't show up here unless you're explicitly looking to fight. And I don't have anything good for you to fight with. Like, there's some 48 laws of power shit, but he made a blunder. He mucked up by acting so passively in those scenes, both letting him get away and both with letting him talk shit. And it escalated. First of all, he destroyed more of the bar, and second of all, he kidnapped Luffy and brought insecurity to his crew. And Luffy is part of his crew at that point, whether he wants to admit it or not. Is he like Colby, who was like the ship guy? No. But he's there. Like, they're involved. And because he didn't stick up, his relationship suffered. So I can imagine that whatever Shanks did in the past or is going to do in the future is always going to be haunted by that passivity. And so that's got its own interesting things. And even deeper, he knows it. And that's why he doesn't give the hat to Luffy for wanting to follow him. He only gives it to him when he says, you're going to surpass me. And that's when he says, all right.
Yeah. They've actually got like a statue of like him holding out like the hat like in the Onepiece shop in Japan. You can like go ahead and put yourself in sort of
Luffy. Oh wait, you can put your own head. It's not even Luffy there. That's funny. That's a little tourist picture thing. I like that.
I do want to go there at some point, but yeah. So I guess like I'm going to do a disclaimer, like generally speaking, because of my role here doing this with you. I'm not going to go ahead and fill in every detail for Mel. Like I'm gonna like leave him get to his own conclusions, and if there's like context I know later on that like kind of screws something, I'm not gonna like go
Yeah,
ahead
or
and
if
go
I
fully into it.
misunderstand something,
Yeah,
like I watched it and I actually just got it wrong straight up,
yeah. Like
then
if it's
please
like
tell me.
if it's like actually there, and I can go ahead and talk through things, I will do so. But otherwise, I'm gonna leave that sort of like broadly open. The thing that bugs me about this episode the most is that sort of scene where Luffy is like properly kidnapped. Like when he's like
Mm,
taken off, like, oh, it's a smoke bomb or whatever, and Shanks loses him in the moment and like
mm.
is, oh no, I messed up, like in that sort of goofy way. It's
Yeah,
like I don't know how much to buy that. And
that's what I
Shank
was thinking. Because everybody's looking around like this is funny to them. And they all love Luffy. So I don't know what's funny about this. Especially when they know he can't even swim anymore.
yeah, because and I'll speculate on this like side because we don't even like know this in terms of like just general details now is where Shanks is in terms of the world at this moment. Because this is
Mm.
still a flashback going 10 years ago. So a lot can happen in 10 years considering the entire story of One Piece is within three.
Yeah, and Luffy, he seems like he's definitely naive, but he's also like ignorant. He straight up just doesn't know things, and it's not a matter of immaturity, it's just a matter of access. So he was somewhere where information does not reach about anything. Didn't even know to recognize the devil fruit. He was just eating stuff. And like, yeah, is he a dumb kid? Sure. But again, it's a funny callback to when he's first arriving on the ship and he's eating fruit and he's like, I don't even know what this is, but it tastes good. So that's why I was laughing at that in the first episode. But yeah, there's definite cloister sensation, which it makes sense why a pirate would go to a place with very low information. That's the best place to hang out, you know? That's where they would hide in the different archipelago areas and find their own little shanties and pirate towns where they could manipulate trade or casually talk with merchants to set up bartering agreements about I'm not going to rob you if you pay me this amount of tithe or whatever. But it didn't feel like Shanks was doing any of that. There was no sense of urgency or business for Shanks other than having a devil fruit and Luffy and him being there. It didn't feel like he was doing anything else. And it felt like he would have been there with enough regularity that it's
Yeah,
like, if this isn't your home base, then why are you here? Because this is
there's
not your home base.
so I've got my own sort of like theory stuff as to why he's there at this point in time. But I know one of the like community sort of generalized ones. Like you saw Makino there. She's the person that was, you know, running the bar.
Mm-hmm.
There is like speculation of, oh, does Shanks have like some sort of relationship with her?
Yeah, yeah. I could see that. I could see that. That's not enough for me, though.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
enough for me. I'm not even saying this is true. I don't remember any rumors explicitly saying that like this is what it is, but I feel like Shanks is being placed here by someone, and he's agreed to it. And I'm kind of thinking back, like who can make a pirate on Shanks level do that? And there's Blackbeard, which is an obvious one, and there's because again he's one of the few that's even been introduced. If this the pirate guy has been introduced and then we go into an episode and it's Luffy and it's Shanks, then I'm like, this is anime, bro. They're related somehow. Like that's how it is.
Yeah, I
That's just
will
writing.
say that hole he is placed there isn't a common view or anything like that, but it does actually. It's something I kind of subscribe to, like through my own
I don't
feelings.
think it's a hard placement. I don't think it's a hard placement, but I do think there is like some kind of insight that Shanks has about who Luffy actually belongs to, or like what this maybe even just Luffy's island belongs to, island or inlet or whatever the hell it is. Um, like he's got some piece of information that others don't because he's dealing in things that others do, and he's like again even the devil fruit, the super rare powerful thing, and he has it in a box. In this anime, it's just out in the open, and other times it's with the rest of his treasure, and maybe this was just a pit stop. But like the fact that he has a devil fruit right in front of him, and it's an active one, because there can only be one fruit. Uh, and he's not eating it. No one's eating it. They just didn't get to decide who gets this incredibly powerful thing. Like, what were they going to hold a tourney over it? No, that's not how Shanks' crew does. It's just something. There's just some odd things going on here.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling we're not going to learn about them for an incredibly, incredibly long time. This feels like late game reveals to me. Whatever secrets belong to Luffy's past. The other thing I appreciate is that even with all this conspiracy theory I have in my head about it, it doesn't really feel like a chosen one scenario. To me, like Naruto very much has chosen one syndrome of like, I have this special thing and I was born with it. It is a burden that I didn't even choose to carry. I was the chosen. Whereas Luffy was like almost an accident. As much as I'm saying like there's all this surveillance stuff, the degree to which it happened with the fruit and everything else, like he's rolling in the seas and there's no system that puts him on whatever path he is. It's more a matter of him rolling with those waves in such a way that it always feels like he ends up where he's supposed to be. And I think that's quite a strong character trait for him to have. And this background helps him maintain that. So overall, Shanks, cool. Luffy's background, not a chosen one, but one who chose the life himself and kind of chose it by just dancing with the waves. And there were quite a few animation moments. Some I called out, some I didn't, that I really enjoyed. Solid episode.
Yeah. That we haven't addressed the big elephant in the room actually yet. Like directly. And that is
all right.
Shanks losing the arm itself.
Yeah. But what do you mean by elephant? Like, obviously, I've already talked about how I think that's lame. He can lose an arm and then stare a beast off and also survive and go back to normal. But the survival part, I'm going to put on him being strong and it being cartoon logic. And then the C part, I am pleading that they show that that was his moment of awakening. The conquer hockey that, like, intimidates people.
I don't.
Assuming he even has it, which I'm pretty sure he does.
Yeah, it's not one of those things that's hard confirmed by any means, but it is like heavily speculated. Yeah, that is Conqueror's.
Yeah. Because in some iterations that we've already read, he's like the first guy to really do it like that. Him, Luffy, and Zoro have all been able to do something like that. We've seen others do something close, like Axeman had a similar thing, but his thing wasn't as defined. It wasn't like this paralysis. It was more just general fear. Where Luffy definitely has the straight up paralysis. Ace paralyzed a giant sea snake. That was so funny at 1.5, by the way. I love that shit.
It's
I love that shit. Oh man, that was schmovin'. He was doing like Thunderwind. He was doing the lightning fist, the Tekken Kazuya Thunder Wind God fist.
Yeah. So
swoosh, swoosh.
I'm gonna address the Shanks arm thing from two different directions, okay?
Okay.
And I'm gonna go with meta reasoning first.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that he was basically told by his editor to up the stakes.
My meta reason is that it was like his sacrifice as the mentor character. Like, I'm not your full mentor, but I still need to give up an arm.
Oh, to be clear, when I say that's the meta reason, that I've heard like in an interview before.
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me. I've heard similar things with I think the most famous modern day example would be Demon Slayer, with the like Michael Jackson villain showing up way earlier because it was kind of falling off the manga, and I was surprised. It's generic shonen action. Well, I feel for the lady. Yeah, there's good parts in there. Good pieces and parts. But she had to basically bring the stakes way forwards in order for it to blow up. And it did. It worked for her.
Yeah. So that's kind of the reason on a meta level why it happened. in a more narrative sense and making that sort of fit back. Like, it's awkward. Like, considering how expansive One Piece has gotten as an entire franchise and where it lies within it.
And even compared to the episodes we had previous, there's just such a tonal shift. We've seen people defeated, but even the most violent of criminals, like, who are literally, like, chopping people in half with their mutant arm, are, like, getting hit with triple samurai swords.
And just not.
And, yeah, they're just, I need a nap, bruh. Woo!
Yeah.
That sharp steel sure makes me sleepy, like some Batman stuff. And then today we have bam bam, and then a guy losing his arm.
Yeah, like we've been over like the Luffy eye stab, and like
also
the anime does Loki
handle the arm loss. How did 4Kids handle the arm loss? What happened there? Did they just kind of skip it?
I think they had to include it because there's like they obviously like try and tone stuff down a lot. We'll get into more moments of 4Kids like in the future. Well,
yeah, I wonder if maybe they had like they just showed it from the other side only, where it was like the side where he has the arm hugging.
That would be like full on like redo the animation thing. No, I think they might have like probably like done a crop like cut off type deal. Like as
have it less torn. That would make sense.
Like clean up the blood side of things as well.
Yeah. I thought there would be more blood, to be honest. I was a little disappointed. Like, if you're going to raise the stakes, you might as well go there. But it's whatever.
Yeah. So, like, in terms of narrative justification, I am fully in the camp of Shanks is basically traumatizing Luffy here. This is indoctrination via, like, straight up.
I have a little bit of that thought, too.
It's like, you know what? Yeah, you've got like Luffy like kicked to like the side of this like water like fountain thing. Like, yeah, I'm gonna set an example here. Like, play my part. I'm gonna get my arm ripped off. You know,
even the water fountain wasn't that big a deal, but like letting him get on a boat when he's cursed to drown, that's like, bro, you're doing this on purpose, bro. You're not. There's no way. Like, there's no way. And even if it was just that, I would be like, that actually makes sense. You're pissed at him, he ate your fruit, and you need to teach him there are repercussions to it. Even if you're not going to punish him personally, like, this is just going to affect his life going forward. So he needs to know what his own stakes are. Forget about yours. He needs to know his own. But then the arm thing as well is like...
You've given this up, and like you've brought him through all this trauma, and then it's like, here's my hat, go surpass me. Like... There is like theorization out there.
This is what I'm saying.
Shanks,
I feel like Shanks is in the loop on something about Luffy that no one else knows, and I don't feel like he's telling anyone either.
But that is the extent.
We spent quite a bit of time with this episode. Do you have any other closing points to make, or do you think you're ready to call it here and get the next?
Yeah, because like a lot of what I would want to like discuss in depth, I just can't. At this point, sorry, it is the beginning bit of media for One Piece that gets referenced throughout, and there's more details that we learn later on that affect words that we've heard here.
Yes, that we learn later on, not Oda writes later on.
Yeah.
Oh, he foreshadowed. Didn't you read the suitcase on the side panel of?
He did foreshadow though. That's the thing.
Okay. Hey, I'm not saying he didn't. I'm just saying it sounds goofy as hell. That's why I'm watching. Yeah. That's why I'm watching.
Yeah.
We're gonna find out. Because Bleach, people yak on Bleach all day, every day for him having all the powers. They told you day one. They told you day one what it was, and you just had to pay attention before he even goes to Soul Society. You have all the information you need to basically understand everything. I remember back in the day when I was reading those books. Anyway, Uryu with the sword strapped to his head. That's all I'm saying. I'm just gonna leave it there.
Okay. Well, I think we've thoroughly gone through this episode.
Yes,
this is like,
it's an episode that needed thoroughness, though. So I don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, it's a standalone thing. It is the first piece of One Piece media. It has a very prominent place within the story. It's not the start of an arc or like the second episode or something like that, where we can discuss the whole arc as a whole afterwards. But speaking of new arcs, we are going to be getting into Orange Town and all that. So let's go ahead and do so.
It's hilarious seeing how Nami looks compared to how she's gonna look. It's just so funny. Man, he punched him hard. Look how far his hat flew. Why is she on the roof? I'm loving the arm animations. It's still looking good.
Now we're just being a prime opportunist.
She kind of says what her deal is, straight up. Luffy's got a good nose, and he can smell the bullshit. I love the Frieza look he has to his eyes right now.
Yeah, I will say, like, in the manga, he's actually, like, even more threatening than in the
Oh, he's
anime.
way more threatening in the manga. He's, like, actually Joker.
Like, this guy that actually, like, going ahead and, like, having him, like, pick up. Like, blow him up with a buggy ball afterwards. Like, in the manga.
Yeah.
They don't do that here.
And the buggy ball, like, takes out... It's like an actual modern-day nuke missile or something. The thing is... Plus the force is a nice one. I like their little hand, like, palm up like this for their sign-off. I don't know if this is going to continue, by the way. I also noticed a trend between Buggy and Alfeda and even Lockjaw Morgan, or whatever his name was, that a lot of these pirates or, bad guys have something about them that makes them an outcast because of their appearance. Like, they have this deep insecurity, and that's what almost propels the worst of their evil.
I'd say there's a trend between, like, Buggy and Alvida, but I wouldn't say that really extends out.
Well, let's find out. From what I know of Arlong, he doesn't have quite a same thing because it's not just him as an individual, but his race and species as a whole.
That's fair. It's worth saying, like...
Okay, so she's already got her hands on the map then, here.
Yeah. She's hoping to double down. It's worth saying, like, in the manga, like, she says here, right, oh yeah, I want 100 million berry. By sort of any means necessary. But she actually, in the manga, like, details, oh no, for this reason, all that, just spells it out. Like, basically, you'll see it later in Baratie, they kind of, like, play it as, like, a mystery type deal, whereas it's like...
Yeah, I think the mystery
pays
pays off well, though, for the anime, but let's see it play out.
Yeah.
I'm loving these Buggy mannerisms. It's kind of odd, but I thought he would be skinnier, because he's, like, relying on his devil fruit or whatever. And he's also, like, a creepy character. They tend to make those guys look like skinnier.
Yeah, he's got to make use of the opportunity.
Ooh. Jeez.
Yeah.
Buggy just killed a lot of people.
Place is abandoned.
The town?
Yeah.
Uh,
I think now he said, "Oh yeah,
I
this
guess
is
that
even
makes
my
sense. We haven't
house."
seen anyone on screen.
Yeah.
I just wasn't sure if that was like saving costs on animating people or if there's actually no one there.
I'm pretty sure now he said, like, in the house, this isn't mine. But people aren't here.
Mm. Ma'am, you are a thief. Also, pirates do a lot more than just kill people to survive. They do a lot more than that. It's not
There was
just
that
the murder
Zorro
part.
poster there.
Ah, I didn't quite catch that. Thank you. I love how Luffy always looks like this like dark sage when he talks about the matters of life and death. I wonder if Buggy lit it. Because we see he's got like the force manipulation power. Ooh, this is Monty Python running forwards 5 million times. Zorro, always posing like an ox, just holding the line with 50 billion people.
Yeah.
The fashion sense serious.
The moral thing for Nami of like, why is there a pirate hunter like with a pirate?
Mm. I'm loving Buggy's voice acting in Japanese.
I'll say it detracts away from like the manga styling of him, where it is very serious. But I think it really fits the
I think it's still more serious than the friggin' English, though. Because the English, I liked him because he was just so bad that there was like not even a hint.
Right?
Oh, I thought he was gonna pass out like Morgan did. Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, it has that creepy vibe to it.
Yeah, just the limbless in the wind.
Eyes like shaded out.
Mm-hmm. A terrible matchup for a Swords person. Buggy should have twisted the knife.
This is one of my favourite shots, this next one. It's so psycho.
Yeah.
And then it jumps back to the
he's not even laughing normal. Luffy's made of rubber. He should be able to squeeze himself out of most cages.
Like, that's a psychopath right there.
I love that laugh, yeah.
It's a whole, like, I'm not in a cage, you're just in a cage to me. Like, the whole
yeah,
rest of the world
exactly.
being out by this cage.
Ooh, some actual fighting. It's ridiculously strong. I wonder if Buggy actually has a way to deal with that. It could just like walk sideways, but the cannon blast is shown to be like wider than just the ball itself. It's almost like an explosives weapon rather than just a simple shot
Metal
put,
ball. Yeah.
giant bullet. Um, Great intro for Buggy. I love him. He's honestly a top 3 character. I think maybe 3, maybe 2. Um, yeah, just good stuff. More solid characterization for Luffy's kind of his will is made of iron, and you know it's not a shield; it's a blade.
Yeah.
Now, short blades are often used for defense, but that does not mean that they aren't still weapons. Um, as for Nami, it was good to see her like actually put her own skin in the game, and then how the story rewards that with Zoro showing up just in time while she's making the sacrifice, rather than just chopping her head off first as the person who lit it. um,
I want to ask
uh,
you sort of again
mhm.
about Nami's introduction. I know we like briefly touched on it, you know, last video recording thing about how they were like bringing her in earlier. The like her first appearance like in manga
They were
is
showing her off, yeah.
yeah. Her first appearance in the manga is the effectively the boat jacking. Um,
Hmm.
do you think that them showing her off, doing her thing beforehand, kind of ruins the surprise of the trick she's about to pull?
No, not at all. If anything, I feel like it enhances it because it dispels like preventatively any urgency you would feel about her joining or not joining or whatever, and it keeps a level of intrigue to her signing up with the crew. Like, yeah, she was willing to literally get burned because she made a bad deal, both literally and metaphorically, but that doesn't mean she's with you. She's still got things to do. And I feel like that characterization is important. And it's just another drop of evidence in the book for what's liable to happen depending on how her interests align with yours. And I almost feel like quite oddly, like she's at a point where it's not I think a telling point is it's not just how shall I say her personality to be like this. Like obviously that plays a part, but I feel like there's this element of if you align with my interests, I will go to you. But she doesn't seem like the person to ever recruit somebody, which tells me that she's like trying to keep interaction to a minimum as a baseline, especially when it comes to manipulating other people. Um, yeah, she was willing to reach out to Luffy to do that, but only after he already proved he could handle it. There's
He
this
proved
very
he could be a useful idiot by that point.
well, yeah. I mean, he proved that when he dropped out of the sky, and then he proved it double when he actually had the will to fight, which are two different things: to be strong and to be willing. And Nami saw that he was both, and only then did she include him. And even then, it's not. There's no discussion of like mutuality beyond the superficial, because, and that's what that speaks to me as somebody who has a sense of guilt about their independence. It's very subtle, but that's what I'm sensing. Maybe I'm reading too much.
I don't feel like there's too much to say outside of like Buggy and Nami's introduction for this one. On the whole, um,
Yeah,
again,
I do. It's still odd that Luffy is being held captive when he's made of rubber, and like raccoons and rats who have actual bones that they need to be concerned about, or octopus, which is more seafaring, only has to worry about its beak. Whereas Luffy doesn't have to worry about his bones or his beak or anything. He can just squeeze.
yeah, should be able to like
So
squeeze through the cage, basically.
yeah, and while I know they keep the bars wide enough so that you can still see the character, they could have done like a mesh grate, and then just like basically erase the mesh around his face so we could see him clearly. And I can't help but wonder, is this just a matter of art style? Is it a matter of just not didn't think about it? Or is this almost kind of showing off the limitations of how he's using his rubber at the moment? Because we see moments where he experiments or does something interesting, like with the bird, and then we see other moments where he gets so close, but he's like grabbing food instead of grabbing a table to slingshot himself outwards. You know?
He seems thoroughly unconcerned that he is captured.
Yeah, but he also doesn't seem like he has a real plan for it either. So
Yeah.
I feel like there are many times where Luffy seems unconcerned about something, and that's because he actually has an idea of how things are. Like, he knows he has some cards in his hands. And I guess in this situation, the card in his hand is Zoro and maybe Nami, but mostly Zoro. I just don't feel like that was a strong enough card to warrant him sitting around. And it would have been cool for me if they like brought up a current limitation to what he can do rather than just having him be too distracted to act in self-interest, you know? Because if you can't like squeeze your fingers through and then pull your hand through, like people who are actually tied up in real life disconnect their joints to get out of it. You're telling me a man made of literal rubber is like held prisoner, you know? So, and again, it's not about him being held prisoner or how that's like impossible. It's just like a discussion of his powers more thorough.
Yeah.
Could have been good. So far from what I'm seeing, it's just not that type of series. It's just not. It's not Hunter x Hunter. It's not Naruto pretending to be Hunter x Hunter. And it's not Bleach where they like announced their band Kai, which got turned into Jujutsu Kaisen's, you know, binding vow of explanation. So I'm gonna have to make my peace with that.
I think a lot of this is more early One Piece as opposed to later on.
Yeah, that could also be a factor.
Um,
JoJo's had the same issues where like things were kind of just happening, and as long as it looked cool, that was what mattered.
yeah.
uh, but I don't want to focus more on that like nitpick. I just want to say Buggy showing back up with the breeze fluttering his cloak to show his missing limbs. That was dope, and that's my moment for this episode. As far as I'm concerned, the rest of it is damn near filler. So,
Yeah,
do you have any? Do you have any thoughts for us?
I'll pick up on something from that we saw like last time, and that is the nickname of Buggy the Immortal.
Yes.
It's not really something that I remember coming up too much post that at all. But I think like that's partially just down to like Zoro went ahead, cut him up. It's like, he's damn near immortal. Like you can't cut him. He's just like completely fine after that.
Yeah, there was a sense though when I don't know if it's just the animation or if he hasn't trained it to a level where it's automated, but it felt like he had to be intentional about separating his body at the current stage he's at. Because it felt like he split almost before he was cut. I don't know if that's maybe an animation quirk or something, but that's kind of how it looked to me.
I think it's an either or.
Yeah.
But I think that's more highlighted by reappearances, down the line, so on and so forth.
Now I watched the Netflix, so we have an idea of like what some of the limitations are with his powers in terms of like he splits up too much, they get a bit weaker. I won't say any more than that. But
I mean,
he has a similar kind of situation to Luffy in a way, which makes him such a great devil fruit user to be pretty much the first to confront Luffy, and that they both have this seemingly indestructible body. They're both similar in that way, but one's for bludgeoning and one's for slicing. And while we see Luffy has the strength to kind of push off blades, it's not something that usually gets a direct hit on him. And that's why like Axe Hand Morgan was perceived as like an actual threat to avoid, even though when he smashes, it's more of a crater than a cleave, but whatever.
I think Buggy is one of those characters that changes a fair bit between the Netflix and the anime version. Like, obviously, we've only had one season of the Netflix, but he's way more.
He's way more B plotty.
He's way
Like
more like
he's brought in
trauma.
fundamentally as a subordinate, like a Starscream kind of guy. Whereas in the anime just now, he feels like his own character.
Yeah, he is like very much in that more comic relief vibe, which he does kind of take up
Hmm.
more in the anime later on. But on top of that, he's way more sort of like trauma and backstory villain in the Netflix. Like the
Yeah,
I
he
feel
kind of
I've been
is.
betrayed, and you know,
Yeah,
it's
well, he
my
is in the
collection
manga
of
too. In the
freaks.
yeah, in the Netflix, he's very much more that side of this like collection of freaks, but I also call them freaks and treat them badly. So like my insecurity is even pouring out onto the people I collected to surround myself with slash maybe protect. That's why he's a villain. But in the manga, it's almost like, yeah, I'm annoyed by this, but it doesn't really even define my life. What defines my life is actually my relationship with Shanks. I don't know if maybe that's in the next episode, but he hasn't brought up the Straw Hat yet, and he definitely brings it up pretty quickly in the manga. And then you see
Um,
him and Shanks together,
yeah,
and Shanks we
that's
know is an
later
amazing
episode.
pirate. So I'm again gonna assume that they're both working with Jolly Roger, which kind of elevates Buggy in a way to have him associated with Shanks and thereby the Roger's crew. With my assumption that they're both part of it.
Yeah. We will go ahead, get to the next episode.
Episode 6.
Uh, start with the
Luffy, you
trope of.
look like you're about to fall out of the cage if you weren't standing on the pillars. What's happening here?
We're at the start of the Zoro trend of getting injured
Get
all the
serious.
damn
Who are you
time.
guys? How about you help out, lady? They're gonna kill you too. Well, there's the blood that we were missing. I'm loving their... As much as contrived as the situation feels, I do love Zoro's strongman acts. It always feels very satisfying.
Just the lack of effort of Luffy of doing anything in this regard.
Yeah, like, we know he can get at least a foot through and walk.
Isn't that like, oh yeah, a kid wanting a a kid wanting a like piggyback ride
Oh,
deal?
fuck. Here we are. Okay. Okay. I got beef with this dog. The face?
Yeah.
Okay. That's way funnier. I thought they did the hand.
The fact that Luffy is rubber and stretchy and all that just makes the gag funnier.
Yeah, it would have been even funnier if he was like stretching his face out like pizza.
Yeah.
Pizza cheese. Ma'am! You
Just
watched him
hand it.
carry that thing for like 3 blocks? Or I guess you went out and got it. Yeah. And there we are. There we fucking are. There we are. Oh, pardon for the curses, ladies and gentlemen, but dogs do not eat large metal objects. Even small ones, it's not a given. Also, he sees a man in a cage, and he's like, "Stop bullying my dog." Man in a cage. Classic. I hope the anime handles this better than the manga. Are you sure you want a full dog? You ate about 2 pounds of solid steel.
Well, he's fulfilled his own content.
Me too, dog. Sounds like firecrackers. Like a hawk rather than a lion. I mean, I would imagine so. He hit him so hard that Luffy couldn't even break out. This is actually better than the manga because the manga emphasizes the claws and then explicitly goes out of their way to show how sharp they are and that they can cut things, which Luffy still has to be concerned about, and then he's uncut by them. Whereas here, he just kind of gets slapped.
Yeah. It's very much bludgeoning into the house.
The voice acting makes this way more tragic. For the dog, ironically. Ah, I feel this way more right now. This is way better than the manga. Oof. Oof.
It is a brutal cut.
The blood
like
splatter. That's a good cut. Where'd the fire start? I guess he did say he was just going to burn it down to spite him or something. I think that's what he said in the manga.
You made me look bad in front of the person I killed.
This is way more sad.
See, this is one of the things I really wanted to see from you, because I know you didn't like the manga version of this. And I'm like, with the music and the emotion, like, here.
I pretty much was about to drop the manga when I came upon this scene. I was really that mad.
Yeah.
I was like, and I don't get mad at manga easily. I usually just am like, whatever.
So yeah, the blood was actually Moji's.
Oh, it was like the food?
No, the blood was Moji's, so like he showed like the bit in arm.
Ah, yeah, that's what I figured it was going to be. Yeah. This move was sick though in the manga.
Yeah.
It looks good here, but they missed the actual spin part, like with the lion. I guess they didn't want to animate it.
Playing to the importance of treasure for Luffy and what that means to a person.
Reminds me of Yusuke in that pose. Yusuke Urameshi. Boom! There it is. Beautiful still shot.
Like that's a very much like prototype punch for like a couple of like the later ones that just like have that impact to them.
I wouldn't have minded a previous frame of impact, like him cocking the arm, but the still frame is still strong enough.
I think it works like the weird time distortion they're doing right now.
I love he doesn't try and correct her, just as if you could. That's a little weird. Just have an open mouth.
I'm too rose tinted for this music.
I don't know if that dog's gonna live too long with a key of that size inside of him, though. he's gonna need that dog food to re-eat when he pukes out the rest of it. "40 years ago" is interesting because that actually is one of the first establishments of any kind of timeline. Boom. Beautiful. Oh, damn.
We're starting to get into like the civilians actually being affected by pirates and seeing that here.
Wow. Okay, come on. You don't get two of those. That's like his third one. Second one was awkward. Now I got this one. Like, obviously he's not dead. It's episode 6. So now her heart opens up, and now she's like, I'm not only going to use you, but I'm actually willing to work with you.
I think the episode does a good job at like gradually like opening Nami up to, oh, these people are actually kind of different.
Yeah, well, she's so clever and like understands people's base desires of like selfish protection well enough that when people act outside of her expectations, she's all the more blown away by it because she's so attuned to that.
Now it's actually revealed, oh yeah, it was the arm all along that I was doing the force choke with beforehand, because I just didn't animate the actual hand. Keep the mystery.
Well, they animated the imprint.
Yeah, they did. But then it could be just like Vader choke, you know?
And here they show that he feels what his hand feels, even in the disconnected state.
Alright. Chouchou, chow chow.
Chouchou in the manga was awful. It was awful. HD awful. Because I was reading high quality scans. Where do I even begin? I feel like Chouchou was especially egregious, not because he ate a big key and did a cartoon thing that's like dumb humor that even when I was a kid I wasn't into. That's just not my kind of humor. No. It's because I felt at the time that he was far too representative of what we were going to be seeing throughout the anime. That Luffy was going to show up, there was going to be a tyrant, they were going to have something meaningful, the town was going to be like, oh, this is important to us, and then the pirates are going to damage it, and Luffy's going to fight them and be like, hey, I got you a piece. Don't be afraid to keep, believing in yourself and rebuilding or whatever. And there was going to be some long sob story that they had to cut away for to explain why the dog that did the annoying thing that stops the plot from moving forward from an already arbitrary place. It felt like they were jumping through a lot of hoops to set up the fact that we need to care about this dog. And it was somehow even worse in the manga. But at least here in the anime, they have kind of ironically more space. And not just like space time wise, because obviously I don't want my time wasted, but they had more physical space because they're not restricted to the panels, they're restricted to the FPS. They can spend time on the dog in this big isolated white room, and that stays there. They can spend space with each memory rather than cloistering them in panels that still somehow take too many pages to read.
Yeah, you can let the
And
emotions linger.
yes, you can let the emotions bloom completely, and you can let them linger. And the voice actor for the dog, they didn't really sound amazing as a dog, but as a character, they were great. Call me back to like childhood voice acting stuff that you hear in like kids cartoons and whatever. And yeah, there were a lot of things that just hit way harder there. And I honestly feel like as much as I've been enjoying moments of the anime or congratulating it on good animation stuff when I see it, or calling out like dumb plot points, I feel like that particular moment, this turnaround, was really what brings the anime as a medium worth translating to into light. Because even in the action
Yeah.
scenes, which I normally praise for how they deal with Luffy's arms in motion, I still feel like the manga kind of did it a little bit better still, which is a shame because watching them twist together would have been amazing, and that's something only the anime could do, really, without the manga spending a ton of time on it. Um, but yeah, this was a moment where it was like, there's meaning to this medium. It's not just like manga is canon, manga is correct, manga is directly from the vision of God Oda himself. There's something to this anime that allows for different expressions.
So does this alleviate like some of your fears, like going forwards then in regards to, oh, if this like keeps happening, but it's like more advanced.
It does alleviate. It does not erase, but it does alleviate. Certainly, for sure. Yeah.
They did also.
I still like the things I said that critique the manga still apply here, but they also have positives counteracting them that are new to the medium, as I said. So that's the most succinct way I can put it.
They did remove the scene with the dog and the owner having a bath together. That was in the manga.
I mean, I would have been fine if they kept that, but I can see they just don't want people naked at all. Fair. I'm not on that list of people who are going to be like, fuck, damn it. I wanted to see him in the bath. Though the dog did look like he needed a bath, so I guess that would make story sense, like why he's not being clean.
I think this episode's very much like a prototype in like developing several of the tropes for later on.
Yes. Yes. And it's precisely because they saw it as this prototype. I'm like, if this is your prototype, it's not just a prototype, it's like, because like a prototype can be scrapped. Like you can make many prototypes and be like, yeah, maybe I'm borrowing like 5% from this. This wasn't like a prototype in that way. It was more like a prototype as in like Iron Man 1 for Marvel movies. Like it felt like rather than a prototype, this was like a foundational piece that was, while rough drafted, still going to be at the core pattern of everything that we see going forwards. And I still don't think I'm wrong in that. And I still think it needs to be stronger than that. But I'm willing now to actually be surprised, even with my reservations.
Other than that, like we saw Richie, the lion, as well as Moji. Like one of.
It's cool to see a beast, just like something different, especially something that's not in the water, like the eels.
Yeah, I do like how Netflix handled Richie, because obviously you didn't see Richie at all.
Yeah, I don't really remember what Richie did.
There's a throwaway gag basically that they did of like they've kidnapped Zoro.
Oh yeah, they already kidnapped him. And he's like, oh, do I get to bring out the lion? And he's like, not tonight, Richie. Something like that.
It's not even that. It's like they open up the box and then it's like, oh, we're doing this performance thing, and then it's like, spotlight wasn't on me. And where's the dancing lion?
Yes. That was the callback. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Because
felt like rather than like a callback to the idea of Richie, it was almost more an insight into what the audience who's familiar is going to be calling for, much like Buggy.
yeah,
It's
it's
like rather
because
than
let's
just saying
face
like,
it.
hey, we know about Richie, it's like, no, hey, we also know Richie is explicitly missing.
Yeah,
And we are
we know
upset
it's
about it.
missing. Like we've got a production budget, guys, in live action. Like we're probably
Yeah,
having
a
to
bit of
CG this
a
if we do it.
I think it's called lampshading. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
term. Uh,
Chouchou is in the Netflix as well. Like there is a small dog in that section.
yeah,
Uh,
he's kind of around. Like, yeah, he matters, but not.
oh yeah,
He's not getting
they
like
don't
a
do any of his like
10 minute.
backstory stuff or anything like that.
I feel like I have more backstory for Chocho than I do for Luffy, Zoro, Nami, Buggy, Shanks, anyone. And
Yeah,
then
he's the most backstory character right now. Um,
yeah,
well, we'll see plenty of backstories in the future.
yeah. I know we're gonna see a lot of Nami. She's got her little Orange Town. I don't know if I'm looking forward to it or not, because there are things I like about the characterizations of Nami, and I know that there are elements that she kind of does different in the Netflix versus the anime and manga. Um, so I'm looking forward to that, seeing how it measures up and seeing how kind of we get more into this hostage situation.
I don't want to like hype you up too much in terms of like going into like the Arlong Park stuff in the future, but I really prefer the anime version to the Netflix version
Mm,
of Arlong Park. Um, Orange Town, the beginning, and episode one, like I really do like the Netflix version. I think it's
yes.
arguably a better introductory point
I
for
couldn't
that.
point you to what the episode was in the pacing, but Orange Town, and when you were there, you really felt the like personalized fear that they had of Arlong, and so I'm kind of keeping a close eye to see how they match up. And even if it's not as good, it still needs to be of a certain standard because we need to understand that pirates aren't just things who make a mess or are loud or do attacks that don't have any fruit while the character's on screen. Yeah, they blew up houses and empty houses, and that's going to affect people. But that's not the same as what happens in Arlong Park, where there are actively people being messed with.
Yeah.
Um, so as much as Netflix has covered this element for me, I'm gonna need the anime to back it up. I'm gonna need it to show some teeth, much like we got with Zoro being stabbed. Uh, mhm.
We will get to that episode on the next video.
Yeah,
Another day.
another day, another dollar.
Yeah, like, comment, and all that. Any
What else
questions for
was
the people
working
this
for
time?
you? Any questions for the people? I want people to tell me what their theories on the limits of Buggy's power are. Even if you have to go into spoiler territory, you don't have to use examples with names. But if you're like he performed this feat later, that's allowed. And I wanna hear how far you think Buggy can make it.
We actually get
Uh,
a pretty detailed breakdown of Bucky's power later on.
yeah, I also want to hear um, what you guys make of Zoro and his supernatural recovery and strength at this stage.
Oh,
Because actually, I'm not even hating on that because that's just consistent with his character, and we've already seen like people have wacky bodies anyway. So even though like maybe you could call it cartoonish, like yeah, whatever, that's the vibe. I'm actually there's certain things I actually am having grace for and enjoying, and Zoro's supernatural gorilla nature is one of them.
there is
Uh,
basically a meme about Zoro being like perma-nerfed in One Piece.
yeah, maybe we'll see. I have one last comment, but I think I'll save it till I see more of if Buggy. I'll ask you this then, Dia. So, are we going to see more of Buggy immediately, or is he gone for a little bit?
Um, like after Orange Town.
No, like, is he in the next episode,
Oh yeah,
basically?
Buggy's in the next episode. We have 2 more episodes for the arc. Like it'll be done in the next video.
I couldn't remember if they just left after getting the map, but no, I think they still fight him off a little bit once. Um, hmm, yeah. All right. Well, there it is.
Bye for now. Do the wave. Get predictors on it.